Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ian is Weird. Will I ever get used to it? I don't know. So today I wanted to talk about pattern writing for beginners. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because I am writing patterns and I am a beginner. So I thought I'd throw some tips at you. Would love to get some feedback in the comment section, what have you. So these are just some kinds of things that I've thought about as I've created pattern. As I've created pattern. I'm actually working on a second pattern right now, so I guess some patterns is appropriate, but doesn't feel like it because I haven't finished the second pattern. So, anyways, semantics, right? So, I wanted to give some feedback. Not feedback, uh, advice? I don't know. Trial and error. That's the name of the game in pattern writing. So I, up till this point, have been perfectly content buying patterns when I had to, getting a lot of free patterns, which means going to a lot of blogs that you have to go through like pages and pages and pages and pages of like one, they put a backstory on it, and you're like, I don't care. I just want to crochet. And then there's tons of ads because they make money that way. But you're also like, I don't care. I just want to crochet. So I there were just some things that I wanted that either weren't out there or I was going to have to shell out a bunch of money to make. And also, I wasn't sure if it was appropriate for my skill level because I'm not an advanced crocheter by any means. Um, so, I guess it started for me, like, first of all, figure out your motivation. Don't, like, you can't just be like, I want to make a pattern. Like, you kind of have to have what do you want to make? So for me, I really liked the way that, um, suspended, I call it suspended. I don't know if there's a name for it. But suspended like figures looked in granny squares, and when they're all stretched out and you just have like the little figure in the window, like it's kind of like a stained glass kind of effect in my brain. So I really wanted to make like a series of that and maybe make like a cardigan. Because I wanted to do a granny square cardigan, but all the granny squares I was seeing, I was just like, ugh, it's just not my vibe, you know? So motivation. So, do you want to make a doll? Do you want to make a blanket? Do you want to make something that's tactile for people who are very sensory oriented? Um, think about things like that. And when you think about things like that, that will also inform how big it needs to be, or small, what kind of materials you would need. Let's say you're making something for the dead of winter, or someone who lives way up north, you probably, want to adjust your wool content, or your cotton content. If, it's in summertime, kind of, is it clothing, what's going to be comfortable? Um, and um, so that's part of it too. So once you get your motivation, um, thinking about materials is important. Don't buy them just yet. Learn from my mistake. Don't buy them just yet. So, um, thinking about like, do I want it cotton? Maybe if you do want a certain type of material, sampling a couple different types of that yarn or what have you is important. Um, I, uh, you know, Also making sure like the colors or whatever are available if color matters to whatever project you're doing. Um, an example of me not planning ahead is actually, I'm working on another pattern that I didn't talk about. Um, I'm not even well planned out in this video. Why would you think that I'm well planned out in making a pattern? But I'm trying to make tucking panties, and ordered, I just, because I was like, if I order fabric on Joanne's website, I can really see what it is, what it's made out of, what it's good for, all this stuff. So I was like, I saw this thing that said compression fabric, and I was like, that sounds like it does exactly what I wanted to. So I ordered a yard of it. Um, if you do in-store pickup, you can do just 1 yard. But still, that's a lot for, like, just making one set of panties and seeing if it works. But then I was in store, and I had received some feedback from people who would be wearing tucking panties, because I don't wear them, don't need them. Not bragging or anything. Um, but they said they wanted something with a lot of stretch, and I was like, oh, compression fabric. It must be like what I have in my binder, which doesn't stretch at all. I should get some stretchy fabric. So I got some fabric with some good stretch. I had like a 4-way stretch, and um, came home excited, and I was like, ooh, I could, kind of like put like the compression fabric this way, and the elastic fabric this way, and then I opened the bag, and compression fabric is not what I thought it was. It is super stretchy. And I was like, well, that was a waste. So really thinking about your materials, getting to know your materials, important. Um, uh, Also, if you have to order stuff online, things that you can't see and touch with your own hands, getting like a small amount, like just one, like one skein or one ball. Um, a perfect example is me buying this red yarn and realizing it's the wrong color for me, for what I wanted. So, things like that, just troubleshoot and, think about what you need. Have backup options, or, maybe don't have backup options, but, learn to pivot when things aren't working how you planned. If, you know, just learn to pivot, be flexible. You got to be really flexible with pattern writing, because sometimes you have like a vision in your mind and things don't work out that way. Vision in your mind is something we should talk about. I like to draw. I can draw if I have a picture of something in front of me, but if you ask me to freehand anything, I can barely freehand a squiggle. But having kind of like roughly like a size in mind and a shape in mind really is helpful. And then, um, if you can kind of get dimensions, or you have like an end goal in mind, like when I made this one pattern, I wanted it to end up being a 4x4 square, but because my ghost ended up being so big, I ended up at like a 5x5 square. So I was like, okay, all my squares are gonna be 5x5. But now I have to be sure that everything fits in that 5x5 square. So, just thinking about things, trying things, being ready to fail at things. Pattern testing takes time. Like pattern making takes time. Like, think about how much time you'll think you'll need, and like multiply it by 4. That's about right. Um, uh, try to, with crochet, like, you want to experiment with hook sizes. You want to think about what people who are making it, like, probably have available. So, like, making, like, a hook size that isn't super, like, readily used. Like, if someone said, "Hey, here's this pattern, you're gonna make it with a J hook," no one would bat an eye. Like, everyone has a J hook. But if someone said, "You're gonna use a 6.25," what? Like, that's, so you wanna kind of keep that in mind, like, how is someone gonna perceive this and be able to, make this pattern? Um, so all things I've learned, I can't just, like, reach in and pick up a hook. Um, Maybe I've done that. Anyways, so I initially, crocheted the ghost without, um I did it on a live, and I think, and I did not write anything down. And I was like, "Oh, if I, like, am really confused, I'll go back and I'll watch the video." I don't wanna watch the video, and maybe I didn't explain it in the video because I wasn't doing a tutorial. So, don't do that. My suggestion is to have Word or some kind of a notepad, whatever, I don't care. Like, maybe you physically write it down, whatever works. I think doing it on the computer is a lot easier because then if you try something and it's not working, you frog it all, then you can just erase it. Whereas if you're, like, playing with, like, should I put 3 stitches or 4 stitches? 3 stitches or 4 stitches, and you, like, keep on trying. That might be really hard to read with physical notes. But if you're a physical notes kind of person, do you? Um, so yeah, keeping notes as you go, because then if, like, row 2 looks like shit, you just erase row 2, and you can write it again. And just, I would say, um, there's, like, a couple different ways that you can make patterns and things. I'm sure there's many more, but just things that come to mind. One, you can have, like, a vision of how things will look, and you try to make that vision. And the other is you just play around with stitches, with hook sizes, with yarn, whatever, and then you just kind of see how it looks. Um, and that kind of informs what it is. So, you know, me having in my mind that I want to make a 3D ghost, um, I need to, um, I need to say, like, okay, well, it's got to be ghost shaped, right? And then, like, how do I want to make it 3D? Well, I want to make it where it has all these kind of squiggles at the bottom. Well, let me look up a tutorial on how to do all these squiggles at the bottom, just to make sure I'm doing it right, because I haven't done squiggles in a while, and things like that. So, like, being able to, like, reference, like, different things that you've touched, it's kind of like, you kids might not know what this is, but an encyclopedia. It's kind of like or like a library. It's like having that. Just being able to recall, you're like, "What's that stitch that kind of puffs up? Is it called a puff stitch? Or is it called like a bobble? Like, what's the difference between a bobble and a puff?" Things like that. So, like, being able to recall how to find information is super helpful. Um, so just think ahead, things like that you'll need. Um, and, like, maybe you want to make a blanket and you want to use, like, handful of stitches that'll give some cool texture or something like that. So maybe you're like, has anyone tried like combining like, I'm gonna use a bobble again, a bobble and a puff? Like what happens when those have a baby? So yeah, so a lot of research goes into it. Um, the reason you call it R&D, or research and development, is because you got to do research and then you got to develop it. And so um, I talked about having the right colors, or maybe the right, if you want to have the right color. And I talked about the red yarn. And I'll talk about this pattern that I'm working on right now. I'm going to do a 3D pumpkin. And I had a little bit of this yellow yarn. And I ran out as I was working on it. And I have this variegated yarn. Now I you can see where I ran out of yarn and had to finish this. And now I can't tell if my pumpkin is symmetrical, has the same number of stitches, but it doesn't look right. So things like that, they might be important to what you want to do. So you've written a pattern. So we're going to jump forward a little bit, a little time jump. So you've written a pattern. You think it is easy enough to understand. I would highly suggest waiting a couple days, coming back, and trying to make it from scratch. It will alleviate a lot of the feedback that you're going to get from pattern testers. Maybe you're like, what did I mean when I said this? Or maybe, like, I found with my particular pattern when I was writing this, I put like a double crochet instead of a half double crochet. Like, I just like didn't hit the H when I was writing it. And so it made things look different. So going back and trying to do the pattern from scratch, especially like do it on a small scale, like if you're trying to do a blanket, don't redo a blanket, that's a lot. But, do like a swatch and see if it's got the vibe that you want. Then, once you are ready to put your pattern out into the world and sell it, you gotta stop and you gotta pattern test. And this is a step that technically you don't have to do, but you don't want to be the person who sells someone a shitty pattern. You don't want that reputation. I mean, I don't know you. I do know you, maybe. I don't know who's watching this. But like, you want some pattern testing. You want some feedback. Maybe someone found a way to do something easier. Maybe someone said, "Hey, I used this hook and this weight of yarn, but like I just couldn't, like it was like warping weird or something like that." Try to get some feedback like that. Or maybe like I tried this, people will give you feedback like, "Hey, like, I kept on doing this, and for some reason, like, the stitch count that you have isn't matching the stitch count that I keep getting, and I've tried this a couple times." So, you want feedback like that. Feedback is a gift. That's a very common saying, especially in the corporate world, which we're not necessarily in, but feedback is a gift. And making your pattern better, making it more sellable, making people more likely to recommend other people to get the pattern, it's important. Even if you're going to give your pattern away for free, you don't want to give a shit pattern away for free. I mean, what's the point? What you did all that work for someone to not be able to make anything? That's not the point. I don't think. I don't know your life, but it doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense to me. So get some pattern testers. Depending on the project, will depend on how many pattern testers you need. with things like wearables, trying to get a variety of sizes if you're doing like a sizing project. Um, if you're like, for me, like, I want to get as many people as possible to try my tucking panties when I finish those. But like, I also have to keep in mind, like, I can't afford to like just give everything away for free. So maybe I'll limit it to 3 to 5 people, depending on interest. Because also you want to have a market to sell to, so that's part of it. Um, so yeah, think about how many people you want to test your pattern. The thing is, you can always add more. You can't really take away. Also keep in mind that some people are going to test your pattern, give you no feedback, and it's not going to be, and maybe they had no problem with the pattern. Everything was good, but like, I did a pattern test with the Packer pattern that I do all the time, and I was a pattern tester. And at the end of it, the person who wrote the pattern asked me a series of questions, and I thought it was really, really helpful, because it made me think, like, did I have any problems? Did I try different things? Um, did like, for me, like, I wore it and tried different things. Um, uh, should have washed it beforehand to see that I wasn't packing it full enough of polyfill. Like, that's something I didn't try, but I should have tried. Asking people how long it takes to make, and realizing that there's going to be a variable window, for people, because some people are slower than others, which is fine. Like, I told the person who I did the pattern for, they asked like how long it took me, and I was like, I'm gonna preface this with, I'm a slow crocheter, and this is how long it took me. Like, with like picking it up, putting it down, picking it up, putting it down. Um, so think about questions you want to ask. Were there any problems? Is this beginner friendly? Did you find that you had to use like a specific type of yarn? Or, think about questions like that, that will, and um maybe someone's answer to one question makes you go, hey, I have like a follow-up question. You just made me think, and so being able to have an open dialogue with them is really helpful. But I would not say, hey, the first 100 people who want to try my tucking panties, for free, can give me feedback, and I'm going to adjust every single thing for every single body. And because like some feedback you get might be conflicting, you just got to weigh all those things and think about them. um, these are the things I think about when I can't sleep. So I really want to thank Sarah Quill for shutting my brain down. Not right now though. um, but yeah, and I think that's mostly what I want to talk about. When you're ready to publish it out into the world, be fully available to have people who purchase your pattern ask you questions, because they might run into problems on their own that either the pattern testers didn't catch, or they're just having a specific problem. Like, I was having this problem where like my counts just weren't right, and um, I had to do it like 5 times to get this one particular row to have the right counts, and I was like, I, I can't count that time and how long it took me to do the pattern, but keep in mind that once your pattern's out there, it's not totally passive income. It is, meaning that you don't have to do anything. You just make money when it sells. Um, you do have to be available for when people have questions about how a pattern works. Um, Certain things, you will have to um, uh, to to get be available for feedback or like responses to that. So yeah, I guess that's really all. I know it was a bit like haphazard, but now you know why it takes me so long to write a pattern. But I feel like just in this experience, like I have um, 3 patterns that I'm no, I have I have 1 finished pattern that I need good pictures for. Take good pictures. They make all the difference on whether or not things sell. So that's something that I didn't mention, but like like I had a picture of this for my pattern testers, and I was like, this is it unblocked. But you better believe when I post the listing, I'm gonna have a white ghost. It's gonna be on a black background, and it's gonna be really visible what the pattern is going to deliver. Also, having pictures of like certain points, like this is what it should look like at this point. This is what it should look like at this point. Not like every step, because that's, I mean, that might be excessive. It might not. Depends on you. But like, if there are any instructions that are a little hard to explain, having a picture of before and after that step can be really, really helpful to people. So take pictures in between steps and try that out and see how you like kind of like the look and the flow of the pattern with that. Because like some patterns, like I know when I did the Pride mesh top, because there were different instructions for different sizes, I was like, I don't know how this is supposed to look. Like, it was, I was like, where does it attach? What do I do? I don't know. And it was super confusing for me. I could have reached out to the pattern writer, but I didn't because I just don't like talking to people when I don't have to. um, but do as I say, not as I do. Um, but what was I saying? I don't know. It's probably very wise and very insightful. But yeah, so pictures are helpful. But yeah, and then I have a pattern that I'm about to write, which is the most ambitious project I think I've ever done. Um, Even though I have like experience and like bips and bops of doing stuff similar, putting it all together, combining all that knowledge is gonna be pretty intense, I think. But we'll see. Maybe it's gonna be super easy. But I hope this helped you. If you want to start writing patterns, nothing's stopping you. Just go for it. Like, create something, and if like maybe like you create something, it's not what you had in mind, but it's still cool, still a valid pattern, you know? Test it out. See how it works. I say go for it. So, I didn't pattern write for a long time because um I just I didn't think that I had the skill, but turns out you work with your own skill set to write the pattern. So it doesn't matter how skilled you are, you will make a pattern that you can do, if that makes any sense. So hopefully this has inspired you to go write many patterns and to purchase my patterns when they're ready. Or to test them. If you're an Army of Weirdos, I'm going to do a lot of testing there. And I'm also going to be doing testing on my Patreon, which I'll post a link to below. So, love you all. Talk to you later. Bye.